Ladies and gentlemen, I thank the Honorable Attorney General for hosting this forum. And I think it shows the government's dedication. I don't know of any other forum like this where the public gets to be face-to-face with those in charge of the prison system. I am benefited from the Lord Attorney General's framework, and therefore my presentation will only be about 10 minutes, I hope. I'm opening the batting for the contributors, and I'm not sure who's closing. I can say Mr. Stewart goes after, he's your champion. Mr. Richards, he's a champion. Mr. Khan, Mr. Rajkumar, Mr. Rajiv Prasad, and of course, Acting Commissioner of Prisons, Police, who is a champion. Don't vex if your name not called. The prison plays two roles. Our first and primary role is to keep convicted prisoners in custody for the period that the courts have sentenced them. Our other role, which has been thrusted on us, and strictly speaking, we ought not to be doing, is that we keep accused persons in custody while they await their trial. With regard to our first role, we are doing relatively well. Convicted inmates, for the most part, are able to access programs and are in prison conditions which cannot be described as inhumane. You would see the slide, which really says it all. It was done by a convicted prisoner himself. We could, of course, with proper investment, do a lot better. The judiciary, and I'm putting in the context our role as prison, they're sentenced on 4 principles. 1, deterrent of a potential offender, and 2, deterrent of that specific offender, which really is by their sentence. By their sentence, also, they're saying, we as a society do not accept your behavior. The 2 other principles that we are asked to do, and we are doing quite well, is we keep you safe. We keep society safe from that prisoner. The Attorney General spoke about this. Now, because of breakout communication with the outside world, we are getting challenges for that. We are not keeping society safe. The judiciary has asked us to keep society safe from these prisoners. Our more important role is to rehabilitate the convicted person sent there. We are doing our best. We need more programs. Conditions sometimes are so worse, so bad, that they're not being rehabilitated. Our role is to prepare them, give them the tools that when they reintegrate into society, they are less likely to offend. They came there because of a certain circumstance, however, nature or nurture. But 97 or 95% of them go back into society. And we have to give them the tools. The judiciary, the society, the entire justice system has asked us to do these 2 things. Unless investment is made into prisoners, our ability both to keep society safe from convicted prisoners and our ability to equip them with tools to reduce their likelihood of reoffending, it may come a time where housing prisoners in confined, oppressive conditions will do more harm on society than if we simply do not imprison them. Our system is so oppressive that we are worsening the crime situation. We are making criminals more criminal. And that is the quote, and it really opens up. Bob Marley says, "He who feels it knows it," and we in prison are feeling it. Now, more to the controversial part. The other role that we are asked to fulfill is that we keep accused persons in custody while they await their trial. This is not what a prison is made for, and this is not our responsibility. We are to keep convicted men. The safety and well-being of remand prisoners is the judiciary's responsibility. It has come to a point where we no longer can, and I would say as the inspector, want to bear this burden. When one reads all the legislation concerning prison, there is one sentence that speaks to remand prisoners. One. And that is simply concerning segregation. In South Africa, there is a jail and there is a prison. The jail assists the judiciary in keeping convicted remandees awaiting their trial. It's funded separately, different institutions, different buildings, different structure. We at the prison are doing our job. The remandees, as the Learned Attorney General highlighted, are really causing the difficulty. And that's what it says. Every man's burden thinks is the heaviest, but he who feels it knows it. And we in the prison are feeling it. We are feeling remandees are more feisty, aggressive. They don't know if they're staying there long, if they're coming out. They go to court with the hope that their matter will start. They come back with despair that it has not started. They are almost in the airport at a waiting room, waiting to see what flights leave. The flights are lessened. They don't know even if the flights are going to take them to the free world or back to the prison. But at least they will know where they are. And you are filling the prison with remandees. It is not our responsibility. There are models in South Africa that have been working for at least 8 to 10 years on the structural and philosophical differences between a jail and a prison. Again, I am saying we are championing the prison and the convicted prisoners. You ask most of the prisoners, although they don't want to be there, the convicted men and women, they have more programs. They understand, look, I have 10 years to run out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to associate that. The remandees, they're in flux. They don't know where they will be in 5 years. They want access. They want to communicate. And the remandees are not our problem. They are not our responsibility. If it's one thing I want to say openly, because this has never been said, the prison has nothing to do with remandees. And as the Learned Attorney General has highlighted, it is the delay and the amount of remandees, maybe 50%, because we weren't built for that, and therefore we cannot do that. We don't have the structure. And this is the controversial part. Perhaps there must be a time limit for how long you could keep a remandee in custody. In other countries, there are time limits. Now, don't take this away. I call this Section 35. Now, Section 34 was, after a time limit, you get your matter dismissed. For whatever it's worth, we won't go far. You add a digit, we get Section 35. Look, you don't have your house in order. You're throwing all your junk by us. We don't want it. Get your bail, go to the judiciary. I don't know where you're going, but you're asked to do something that we weren't supposed to do, and we cannot do it any longer. Apply to the judiciary after a certain time, whatever is reasonable. The Learned Attorney General showed you the figures. We have persons there upwards of 10 years. They don't know where they will be in 5 years. We have persons upward of 7 years, presumed innocent. Their mentality is, I ought not to be here. A convicted man is almost resolved to say, I ought not to be here in some circumstances, but I know I'm here. The remandee is somewhere between freedom, hell, heaven, and purgatory. And it's time a clear line be drawn. You can't put your house in order. We're asking you to leave. If I wrap up, because the Attorney General really has highlighted the ports, and I know the other champions will speak to this, we need more non-custodial options. Some people should not be there. We need to ease up on bail conditions, which the Learned Attorney General spoke of. And 90% of people charged and convicted are poor people. They are. They can't pay the fine. They go into jail. They can't get the money for the fine. They can't get bail. Ease up the bail conditions, decriminalize minor offenses, and have more pleas to offenses. The attorneys will speak to this, but some offenses charged do not represent the criminality of the offense. You have manslaughters, and some of them could get bail. Some of them, so many of these people in prison, they would plead guilty, they would accept their responsibility, but you can't plead guilty to death. You can't. No sane man will plead guilty to death. And if he wants to plead guilty to death by hanging, he doesn't really need our assistance. He could do it on his own. So don't give him the option to get fixed sentences. I will end by saying all those who in the prison service are doing their best. Mr. Stewart really is a champion. Mr. Gordon, Mr. Richards. I see Wayne Chance there. He is an ex-convict doing everything to show the power of rehabilitation. The gentleman, I know you do the drugs court. We have lots of conversation. The stress is making me forget your name. We have prisoners, and we really are all champions, but we're like the cricket team. You're not funding us. You're not giving us a chance. And we're fighting up, we're doing our best, but we need some assistance. And I, again, have so much admiration for the Learned Attorney General for setting this up. And in my heart of hearts, I do believe that something good will come out of this. Thank you.
Well, if ever a gentleman could weave so many sentiments together so succinctly, I think you certainly agree that Danny Khan is more than capable, champion and all. Before I bring the next speaker on, I'd just like to deal with two interesting points that I thought you would like statistically. Payment of fines and serving jail term. There's one matter that we pulled out, didn't make the list. A lady detained, convicted that she should pay $12,000 or serve 1 year in jail. Well, she served a year in jail, was released in December, because she couldn't pay the $12,000. But now you know it costs you $20,000 a month to keep her there. So we spent $20,000 multiplied by 12 to make her pay $12,000. So I just thought I'd continue to draw the lines together for you. And relative to the man who confesses to guilt for murder, I just want to tell you of something. I came across a gentleman with Commissioner of Prisons in the remand yard, taking the tour, stopping and speaking to each prisoner. I asked him, "Sir, why are you here?" Everybody else prior to him had told me, "Well, I'm on a charge for this and a charge for that, and a charge for murder." The man promptly said to me, "Sir, I'm in here for murder." I said, "You mean you're here for a charge for murder?" He said, "No, sir, I committed murder. Man took everything from me and I killed him, sir." I said, "Have you confessed to guilt?" He said, "Yes, sir, I went before the magistrate 6 years ago and I confessed to killing the man." So I'm just telling you that sometimes the people who have given confessions still in remand. And that's another factual position that we're wrestling with today. Permit me to ask the next speaker, who I think this time will be Commissioner of Prisons, if he consents. Yes, he does. And ask to come to the podium somebody who you all know very well, the very affable, I think that's the right word to say, Commissioner of Prisons, who when I tour the prisons with him, I hear so many different names for him, most of them complimentary. Commissioner Sterling Brian Stewart is Commissioner of Prisons, and I would like to invite him with your warm applause and support to the podium to contribute this afternoon.